Today is March 28th, 2018. We're at Westminster Village in Bloomington, Illinois, interviewing Mr. David Haake, H-A-A-K-E, World War II veteran. He was born November 17th, 1925, and we're going to hear his story. Dave, where were you born?
I was born in White Plains, New York.
Okay.
Just outside of New York City.
Okay. What did you do before the war?
Before the war, well, I graduated from high school in June of 1943, just after Pearl Harbor.
Okay.
And I was working for $18 a week for the Chicago Daily News. I was an office boy and a proofreader. And when I got out of high school, I worked a little while, then I got drafted on my birthday, or signed up for my draft on my birthday,
Okay.
in 1944, and or 43 rather, I'm sorry. And from there, I was inducted in March 1944, and my story began there.
What branch of the service were you in?
I was in the medics
With the U.S. Army?
with the U.S. Army,
Okay.
or the Army of the USA, or whatever it was that
Okay.
we were in.
Where'd you do your basic training?
Camp Grant, just north of Rockford, Illinois.
Oh.
And we had mostly 18 and 19-year-olds in our platoon, and we had about a dozen guys that were from 30 to 36 who'd left their homes and been drafted too. And we kind of felt sorry for those guys because they had an awful hard time keeping up with the physical end of the thing at first.
Okay.
So, and we went ahead and we had a sergeant that was, he was a typical sergeant, and he did his job because you're in the Army now and you do it our way. And I can remember scrubbing barracks floors with scrub brushes.
Oh my.
For inspections and so on and so forth. But the older guys with us kind of helped us out. They were a little more mature in some ways, but they always liked to complain. Everybody likes to complain in the Army, but that's typical too.
Did you get some specialized training?
Yes, I did. I took 12 weeks of technical or surgical technical stuff, and went to Alabama. I'm sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. I went to Atlanta, Georgia,
Okay.
and spent 8 weeks there. And then I went down to Memphis, Tennessee, to Kennedy General Hospital down there for 4 weeks. And there we worked in wards and in surgeries. And
So you had on-the-job training.
yeah, well, I don't know how effective it was, especially with the surgery. Because I can remember one time when I was in one surgical deal, the doctor looked at me and he said, "Son, you better go to the next room and put your head between your knees because you're about to faint." They were going up into his kidneys, and that was kind of a tough one.
Yeah.
But we got through with that, and went back to Camp Grant, and we had a first thing I finished up basic training, which I'd never finished, with a 30-mile hike.
Oh my.
And I hadn't been doing much hiking,
Well, that was after your 12 weeks training.
Right, yeah.
Okay.
And so I got through it and plundered through it. And then I had a furlough home for 7 days. And then I was assigned to the 194th General Hospital. And we were off October 6th of 1944 for Europe.
Okay.
We got to Europe, and I served in England first. I did some attached training with a general hospital there.
Mm-hmm.
I worked on a burn ward
Oh.
where guys had 30% to 60 or 65% of their body burned. They were either pilots or tankers, and that was kind of rough duty.
Mm-hmm.
And it kind of an introduction to what lay ahead.
Yeah.
And then we got word that we'd move on out. We were going to go to France. Took us a little while because we were there until after Christmas when we got. No, I'm sorry. I'm getting ahead of myself.
Okay.
We left England and went over the Channel, and we got to Le Havre, and then we went and lived in Etretat, just north of Le Havre.
Okay.
The bulge had begun, and so we had to wait for that to let up. So we were there till after Christmas in Etretat, and we lived in caves where the Germans had lived, and also in houses. We had all our meals outside, and I'll never forget Christmas Eve that year, 1944.
What happened?
We had bombers going over our camp
Oh my.
from 5 o'clock in the evening to 5 o'clock in the morning. And we were outside, we were singing Christmas carols, and these bombers are going over. It just made you think. And I've thought of that every Christmas Eve since. Because somebody in Germany was really catching it.
Yeah. These were the Allied bombers that were going
Right.
over. Okay.
And then coming back.
Okay.
Just a continual roar.
Yeah. Yeah.
So those memories are pretty much. Anyway, we left on 48 to go to Paris. 40 men or 8 horses in a boxcar.
Oh.
And it took us a couple of days to get into Paris. And we set up a general hospital in an old school that the Germans had occupied for a hospital. And there was a roller skating rink right next door to us. And they quartered us in a nunnery. And the nuns were still there. They'd been occupied by the Germans too. And it was a little ways off the thing. We set up on January 6, 1945. Our first patients came in. And we handled 10,000 patients. We only lost 2 between our getting there on the 6th or setting up and August when we broke up the outfit. And from there we went around. Of course, the war was over by the end of August.
The war in Europe was, yes.
And even the war in Japan was too.
Okay.
So everybody thought we were going to go to the South Pacific or to Japan at first. But that did not happen.
Okay.
So we were transferred all across. We went down to southern France, had a furlough in Nice, the playground of southern France. And then we went up to Antwerp, Belgium, and so took over a hospital there. And then we had an interesting case there. We had some merchant seamen, a merchant seaman, who died when they got in there. And so we took a ride to Holland, to a cemetery there. And going through Holland, every place we stopped, the Dutch would come up and talk to us. And it was quite an interesting thing. And the cemetery was something to see. It was still being put together, but they were doing a good job with it. And they were getting a lot of corpses and servicemen from America there.
This is the military cemetery they were
Yes.
putting together?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I guess today is probably one of the most beautiful cemeteries over there.
Oh.
I think we're still taking care of them too. And then from there I was sent to a medical collecting company in Germany, Bad Wildern in Germany. It was close to the war zone, or the Russian zone. I'm sorry I'm getting this mumbled. You just have to excuse it, I guess.
That's quite all right.
I hope I'm talking loud enough.
Yeah.
And I was asked if I'd like to go home. I had very few points because I'd only been overseas a year and less than 2 years in the Army. So I said, sure. But the problem was they had a guy up in the Russian zone who had fewer points, but they couldn't get him back to Le Havre to make the shipment home on a Victor ship. So they put me in an ambulance with 2 guys driving, and off we went to Le Havre.
So you took his place?
Yeah.
You got his place, okay.
Yeah.
Good deal. So you...
I felt sorry for him, but
Right.
I was pretty fortunate.
Mm-hmm.
And I met a friend from my old outfit, 194th General Hospital, there at Le Havre, and we got on this ship. And we walked into the ship, and we walked down in the hold, and quartermaster guys were down there, all black,
Oh.
and great guys.
Mm-hmm.
And they accepted us, and we had a great time. We helped each other out. And they had the same aspirations and hopes of getting home and getting back into civilian life and picking up. And I can remember we got small cartons of milk.
Real milk.
Real milk.
Real milk.
Yeah, we hadn't had any for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And we were moving them from the storage part to the mess hall. And as we walked by our area, we knocked on the door, and they opened it up so we could drop that milk down to those guys below, which they enjoyed very much. And
Not all of it made it to the mess hall then.
no, it didn't.
But it wasn't wasted.
And nobody asked. It probably happened time and time again before, but we kind of helped each other out. And when we got back and got on the train and went to Fort Sheridan, north of Chicago, and got dismissed.
Okay.
Well, not. They sent me home for 40 days,
Okay.
and so I had Christmas at home. And then I went back to Fort Sheridan, and they signed me to the induction station in Chicago. And I lived at home in Park Ridge with quarters at home and took the train back and forth just like a commuter. And
Nice.
came April, they discharged me. And from there, I went ahead and took advantage of the GI Bill and
Mm-hmm.
a college education.
Very good.
So that's my story. But I think I learned some things.
Mm-hmm.
Basically, that you have to really care about what you're doing and work together to accomplish anything.
Right. Right.
You know, it's a funny thing. It's amazing that we won World War II in less than 4 years, because we started off with almost nothing. And we had, in 1939, and these are figures from the, pardon me, let me look at this thing here. From the the World Book Encyclopedia. Back in those days, in 1939, we had 356,000 people in our armed services. By 1945, we had 12.4 million. That's a terrific increase. And when we started out, we had 250 airplanes. We had 80,000 in 1945. And we had 700 sea vessels, and we had 2,500 in 1945.
Wow.
This country went to work,
Mm-hmm.
really went to work.
Yes.
Everybody was involved in it,
Mm-hmm.
and we couldn't have done it without that cooperation. It brought us out of the Depression, and it's just amazing, because nobody would have thought we could do that.
Right.
And we were fighting 2 battles, plus a battle at home, and Rosie the Riveter, and a lot of civilians. Gals went to work. Oh, they went wild. Working in shipyards, and this country turned things around
Yes.
so
it did.
quickly.
I was going to ask you, Dave, do you have any other family members that served during World War II as well?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. I had a brother-in-law who was with the 5th Division.
Okay.
Broke through at St. Lô after the invasion of France. Had 2 brothers. Paul, he was in the 256th General Hospital in Hereford, England. Saw him twice while I was over there. And a brother, Chuck, who was in the 89th Division. He came over a little later, toward the end of the war.
Did they return home safely?
Yes, everybody got home.
Okay. And you mentioned you took advantage of the GI Bill and went to college?
Right, I sure did. Beloit College in Beloit, Wisconsin.
And what kind of what did you major in college?
I had always wanted to be a reporter
Okay.
since I was a kid in high school. I'd worked for dailies there, or weekly papers, I'm sorry. Oh, I put it together, Haake. I'm sorry.
No, no.
But I wanted to be a newspaper reporter, and I achieved that after I got out of college. I took a general course that would help. And from there, I went to Salem, Oregon. I worked for a daily there. And just a little while, I couldn't, I was proofreading and I couldn't take it with my eyes. So I went to work in the paper factory, wrapping up paper goods. And I got enough money from that to come back to Illinois. And I went to work for weeklies in Beaumont and Arcola, Illinois, and a daily in Sterling, Illinois. And then I came to Bloomington, and went to work for the Pantograph for 34 years.
Okay.
And I retired in 1989 in January.
Great.
And life began.
Mm-hmm.
And in the meantime, I married the best gal I'd ever met.
Mm-hmm.
And we had 2 boys. So, but I really think there are some things that we just ought to face up. This world has gone crazy. We don't have any morals. I think a lot of people have forgotten God or never known Him. And we have a lot to learn on how to live and work together. And this whole world needs the same dosage. I think we need a good revival, a Billy Graham type revival to wake up this nation. And maybe this will wake up people, and I hope it does, because we really need to work together. All we can do is think of ourselves first and foremost. With electronic gimmicks have taken over our lives. Our family lives have gone to pot. I shouldn't say that, I'll make people mad, but they are different. We don't talk to each other. We don't learn together. And somehow or other, we're going to have to achieve that, or this, and the world needs it. Mm-hmm. And I think we really need to keep our Army and defensive help alive, mm-hmm. because somewhere in the world we've got to step in and help stop what is happening, mm-hmm. so that maybe the world can have a revival. God still rules, mm-hmm. and He is in charge. Mm-hmm. But we've got to get on His side. Now, boy, you just think I was a preacher, but I feel it very strongly.
Yes.
And I hope that people that hear this thing, mm-hmm. this interview, will take that to heart, mm-hmm. and think about it a little more. Because it might make a big difference.
Because in your lifetime, you went through a terrible depression,
right,
and then war. Then
and good times in the 50s.
Good times in the 50s, even though we had the Cold War.
Right.
But in those
Vietnam War.
But in those times, especially in the 30s and the 40s, you knew your neighbor.
Right.
You talked to people. You sat down at dinner time at 5 o'clock and had your supper with your family.
Right.
Most folks.
Yeah. When I sat down with my family, growing up in the Depression, mm-hmm. you better back up anything that you said, because the first thing is why, mm-hmm. which helped me an awful lot. Mm-hmm. My family did a lot for me, and I really and truly appreciated that. But we had a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm. That you had some good lively discussions at your dinner table.
We sure did.
Good. Yeah. Great. And I think Dave brought his, can you hold that for me, Dave? That's
sure.
Your service identification card.
Right.
That you were issued in, well, it says August 29th, 1944.
Right.
So, had it with you all those years.
Yeah. It looks like me.
Sure does.
Today.
Yes, it does.
And on the back side.
Uh-huh. Oh, we got fingerprints.
Fingerprints. And this is a non-combative thing. I don't know how much good it would have done a guy in Germany.
Yeah. But you were assigned to the hospital.
Right.
Not a combat soldier.
No.
Right. Okay. Thanks very much, Dave. Do you have anything else you want to add?
No,
Okay.
unless you've got some questions or,
No, I think we've covered everything. And I
okay.
think this will conclude our interview with David Haake. My name is Christine Gruber. Our cameraman has been Gary Gruber. Thank you, David.
You're welcome.